6:03. An opportunity for citizens to address the board on matters which are on the agenda or are not scheduled for consideration, non-agenda items. The Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits deliberation by the board of any subject which is not on the posted agenda. Therefore, the board will not be able to discuss or take action on items not listed on this agenda other than to make statements of specific factual information or recite existing policy in response to the inquiry. Note, in order to address the board during this time or later in the meeting for any item that is scheduled on the agenda, please complete and submit a speaker card to the city administrator prior to the start of the meeting. The presiding officer may ask the speaker to hold comments on agenda items until that agenda item is reached. Items of community interest. And any expressions of thanks, congratulations, or condolences, information regarding holiday schedules, honorary recognitions of city officials, employees, or citizens, reminders about upcoming events sponsored by the city or other entity that is to be attended by a city official or employee, and announcements involving imminent threats to the public health and safety. 3A, the Independence and Fireworks Celebration event to be held Friday, June 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Haslett Community Park. Any comments? Music is ready to go, I think. Oh, we do? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, Chelsea Walling from 11820 Prudence Drive in Haslett. Would you like to approach and address the board?
It's hot now. Okay, great. Should I state my name again? Okay, Chelsea Whaling. My address is 11820 Prudence Drive, Haslett 76052. And this is my presentation about the volleyball court. Copy. I'll just get started because I know I'm limited on time. So first off, why sand volleyball? To start, it fosters community by helping bring people together, builds bonds and friendships. There's an overall decreased risk of injury because sand is much softer to land on than obviously concrete and even grass courts. Up to 12 people can play on a court at one time compared to tennis's 4 or even basketball's 10. Volleyball is a game played by the young and old alike. It's not just for kids or just for adults, it's for everybody. Lastly, it bolsters local businesses by getting people out of their houses and into town. Lots of people get food and drink afterwards or do their errands afterwards, whatever. And next, because people just love sand volleyball. You wouldn't know it, but there's actually a very large community for it. There's 2 Facebook pages. One of them has over 1,800 members, and just the Haslett sand volleyball page has over 300 members. Next page, the current state of the court. There's some pictures. You can see the grass growing all up into the court. It has no lines. Those lines were removed. And the following pages show a close-up of the net and the equipment. You can see that the net is being supported by leaning posts and exposed wire. And that handle does not turn. It's not catching anything. It just flips around. And the sand, you can see that it has a lot of roughness to it with a lot of little rocks throughout. Next page. Here are the most often requested updates by the community: new sand, new volleyball equipment, better lighting, and a spot to rinse off the sand. Next page. The following pages show Haslett Court compared to other local courts to highlight the potential of this court. First up is sand. You can see how much coarser and rougher it is compared to Hearst Park. or Sarah that's down in Fort Worth. Next page. This is the volleyball equipment. The net and posts are pretty ancient and failing. This is what Bob Eden Park in Euless looks like, and this is what the proposed equipment would look like, or the possible equipment anyways, with safety pads and boundary lines. Next page is the lights. The top left photo shows a player that brought a light to the court so people could play. It gets dark earlier in the evenings in the fall and winter and early spring. And on the top right shows no extra lights. And the bottom left and right shows what the courts look like at night in Euless and Hearst. Next page, the rinsing station. We think this would be a great spot just right off the back of the bathroom right there. Nothing fancy, just a spot to rinse things off, rinse toys off, maybe get dogs a drink of water. Therefore, nobody's having to wash their toys, sand toys in the fountains. I thought I heard that last meeting. Someone said sand in the fountains. And the last page is a cost estimate to complete all this work. It could be done within 2 weeks, comes with a 1-year warranty. I just wanted to include a cost estimate with real numbers to give board members complete data with which to help make decisions and recommendations. And lastly, I just wanted to leave you with this one thought, that the budget to remove the court was over $150,000, but just 1/5 of that amount will make this a really great asset to the community. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for her?
I do.
Go ahead.
Looking at, you use Sarah as an example,
Sure.
the old Lockheed Martin.
Sure.
Is there a fee? Do they charge you a fee to play there?
That one they do. They do. I just didn't get pictures of the sand, I think it was.
But the other ones.
Oh, I didn't get a picture of the sand at Bob Eden. That's why I put Sarah there. But the other ones are all free. Bob Eden and Hearst are free.
Okay.
Those are community parks.
Thank you. Just as a point of reference, we typically, when we do large projects, have to have multiple bids, but I
Of
really
course.
appreciate that.
I just wanted this to be a
I
starting
really
point
wanted you to know I
for sure.
appreciate that, so it's
Yeah.
very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, and I know this was voted on last session to put sand volleyball or talk about it on the agenda for this
Yeah.
this one. Okay. Remember that.
And I think collectively we support the idea of keeping it, so, at least in this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
So, Sarah, I have a question real quick. So we're talking about really removing or the old court?
I don't think
installing
we were
new
ever
court.
going to remove it.
What's that?
I don't recall us planning to remove it.
Is it?
Moving it.
moving.
Sorry, I
Well-
meant moving.
So what actually happened was, so back in 2023, I mean, I have it here, actually, I just saw it. Before we had a tennis court, the plan was to repurpose that surface to make it a multi-purpose court.
Right.
When we then changed direction and got the full tennis court, there was no longer a plan to do that.
Right.
When it was initially intended to remove it or to resurface it, my suggestion was to relocate it.
Right.
But now we don't need to relocate it because we're working on different kinds of water fountains and things like that. But
Awesome.
still, to bring it up to like playing field level,
Yeah. Would only
It's
be a
helpful.
very small fraction of
sure.
what was budgeted.
Yes, but I don't think we ever intended to I never intended to completely remove it, and I don't know that anyone else here had
Or
suggested that.
move it. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a lot cheaper option than moving it.
Sure,
In
sure.
its entirety.
No,
I think
Yeah.
we're just moving it for realistic purposes of
Yeah.
reusing that space for
Right.
something different.
That would have been a whole brand
We're
new
just
court, though,
removing the
guys.
old
That would have been a whole
Right.
brand new
and
court.
putting the new in.
Right.
We should have moved it.
Yes. Just, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Number 3, items of community interest. The Independence and Fireworks Celebration event will be held Friday, June 28th at 6 p.m. in Hazlet Community Park. Hazlet is hiring if anyone is interested in a public works administrative assistant, park and grounds crew leader, a mayor's administrative assistant, and a temporary part-time library assistant. Please visit employee opportunities to apply. All right, so our consent agenda includes some may I just have a point of information? Do you have a smaller page than this one that I can have? Okay. It's all right, just check. I'm gonna work with it. It's ginormous. Okay. Fold in. So on the previous meeting, we postponed the the April financial report and meeting minutes, but I was tardy to that meeting, so I'm not sure why it was postponed. If anyone had any questions or if we had any concerns about that, I don't recall. I'm so sorry. Oh, I don't- sorry.
There's something missing.
Where is that? Oh, can we then pull up the financial statement for April, please? Yeah, that one. Were there any questions about that? I wonder if we just
And it's Dana Horak. I'd like to accept the minutes as written for May 8th and the financials as posted for May 8th.
you want to do a consent agenda or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I'll retract my motion.
motion did not move forward. Can we look at the minutes from May, please? Yes. Next page, please. Next page, please. Next one.
This is Cindy. My understanding is that we had the young ladies come and speak again, or previously, about the volleyball courts, and it was not on the agenda for this meeting. So the motion that we made would not be legal, if that's correct.
I believe that it falls under community park as a motion to be made since we discussed community park and that's where it lies.
Yeah. We can discuss
it.
it, but we can't do an action on it, and there was an action motion made.
But that was in regards to the funds.
There's also one. There's the next added motion to get the cost and upgrade of the volleyball court by adding sand and safe boundaries.
Oh, I see. That's fair. That's fair. So that
So-
shouldn't have been a motion. It should have just been like an inquiry. We didn't necessarily need to
can we
motion it.
list
We
it
just
like
wanted,
that?
can we amend that? We're on,
Park 322024.
the next one. Would that fall under that same volleyball court agenda item to request those funds as a motion, or does it just need to be an inquiry? The question that we have is that if it wasn't an actionable item and we made a motion to get a cost, does it need to be reworded since we just were looking for an inquiry for next time?
I'm going to chime in here.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Page. I'm the city attorney. I'm here tonight for a presentation that we'll be doing shortly on Open Meetings Act training. The minutes probably should stay as they are because that is what occurred at the meeting. And so the minutes are supposed to reflect what occurred. And so if the motion wasn't valid, which it sounds like it was not, then it's
We
just
could
not
redo
valid,
it.
but it's
Okay.
still going to be reflected in the minutes as a motion that was made and voted on as it's listed in the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. Next page.
If they are what they are, can't we just,
Well, it's just if there's an error in it, like if the motion was not correct. If we hadn't actually motioned that, we could strike it. So we just have to review it. But yeah, we can't. So that's what she's asking. Do we need to strike it? Is that what, like? Because I don't know that it was necessarily motion.
yeah.
There you go. Perfect. And then can we just take a peek at the, can we look at the financial statement for May? Do you know if there were any big changes, Katrina, that we should be alerted to? Can we see that other page to that one? Have a motion as a consent agenda? So she's not able to just retract her motion if she's the motioner? Oh, correct. Right. What was the item on the table? Got it. So I need a motion to untable, the previous table and then proceed as a consent agenda. I don't know that that's necessary.
Untable the two.
Hold on one second. May I ask Jeremy?
you can just do one motion for all 4 items. Certainly understand, but we don't need to untable
Okay.
items. You can just simply accept the consent agenda as presented, and that's all.
Mayor, did you have a question, or is that your same? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So we just need a motion to proceed with the consent agenda for this May and April, please.
This is Stephanie. I'll make a motion to consent agenda items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D.
This is Serge, I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, and it's seconded. All in favor? None opposed? All right, now we have a city attorney presentation on the Open Acts of Texas meeting.
Well, good evening again. As the presentation gets pulled up for you all to view, again, my name is Jeremy Page. I am the city attorney for the city of Hazlet. And so you'll see me often at the city council meetings, also advise city staff on other matters. And so tonight I am here in front of the Parks and Recreation Board for Open Meetings Act training. And so it's pretty thorough. This is the presentation that our firm uses for almost all of our clients. It's been presented and approved by the Office of the Attorney General. And so it may, okay, is it too far away? It may answer questions that you didn't even know you had about the Open Meetings Act, but I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible, but also making sure that we're as thorough with that. And so I'll just ask if you have any questions, just save them for the end, and that way we can kind of answer them all at once, because we may end up answering some of the questions that you had later on in the presentation.
I have a question. Are there variations as a recommending body versus a voting body that we should be alerted to, or is that going to be in your presentation?
So for the most part, it's all the same. So an advisory body, as y'all are, will be subject to the Open Meetings Act, just like the City Council or the Zoning Board of Adjustment, all of which have actual decision-making authority. So as soon as we get this ready, we will begin. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Before we get into the actual Open Meetings Act, I just kind of wanted to provide a brief overview of role and responsibilities. And so these are all citations to Chapter 1 of the city's Code of Ordinances. And so the Parks and Recreation Board's purpose is to have a representative group of citizens to advise the City Council, the administration, and the citizens on opportunities to provide quality community parks and recreation services. Again, it's to act in an advisory capacity to the City Council on all matters, as well as you are responsible for maintaining a good working relationship with the City Council, City Board, City staff, and citizens. And in fact, many sections of the Parks and Recreation Board kind of ordinance, establishing ordinance, goes into detail about the various organizations that this board is supposed to maintain good relationships with. And so not just the City Council, which of course includes all members of council and the mayor, the city administration, so all the city staff that is responsible for parks, maintaining good relationship with them, but of course also the school district, youth sports leagues, all of that. And so that's, you all are supposed to be kind of the middleman, so that if there are concerns about it, you can raise it to City Council and vice versa. But at the end of the day, this is an advisory body, and so you'll see in other sections there that it's ultimately up to the City Council as to what policies are going to be put into place for the parks. And so, of course, you all are tasked with ensuring that giving the best recommendations to the City Council, but at this point, y'all are advisory. And so something that is recommended, although it's not necessarily in the Code of Ordinances, is that a board member or two, or even a subcommittee, be designated as a point of contact with the city staff, and whether that be the mayor or the other members of council, just so that there's that open communication and dialogue, and so that there is a really strong presence with that, so that y'all meet once a month, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But lots of business has to be decided in between those. And so it's really important that y'all stay in contact with the council, with staff, the mayor, and everybody. So we are on that second slide now, so thank you. Our Code of Ordinances does call for the regular meetings to be on the second Wednesday of each month, which is tonight. A majority of the members constitutes a quorum, and we'll talk more about what a quorum is in a second. A majority of the quorum shall be required to carry a motion, proposal, or resolution. Under no circumstances should any member take action or make any statement committing the board unless given authority to do so by the vote of the board. And the minutes of each board shall be filed with the city secretary, clearly documenting yeas and nays and all other action taken at the meeting. So this is kind of an important aspect. So action can only be taken on items listed on the agenda. Items not on the agenda may only be placed as a future agenda item, or at least that's where it's recommended to be, if placed anywhere. And so again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that with the Opens Meeting Act training in just a second. But a good example of that would have been tonight, where it is not on tonight's agenda to discuss, much less make any sort of action on the sand volleyball court. And so members of the public are certainly allowed to come and speak on any matter relevant to the meeting, but that is not something that should have been deliberated on, or of course any action to be had. So again, we'll talk about that more in a second. Secondly, you saw tonight how important it is for minutes to kind of document what actions were taken at previous meetings. In addition to just the yays and the nays, it would probably be a good idea to, if items are tabled, that there's reasoning for that. And again, this is not supposed to beat you all down about mistakes or anything like that, but just to kind of some real life examples, even from tonight's meeting, about not just compliance with the Open Meetings Act, but about ensuring that the meetings fulfill what needs to be done for that. All right, so now on to the actual Opens Meeting Act. So the Opens Meeting Act was first adopted in 1967, codified under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. It requires meetings of the governmental body to be open to the general public, except where an executive session or closed meeting is authorized by the act. And so essentially, it assumes every item, everything you're going to discuss is going to be done in an open meeting. Only if there is a specific exception outlined under the Open Meetings Act would this board or any other board, including the council, be permitted to go into an executive session. In addition, it requires an agenda which indicates the time, place, and subject matter of each discussion. And then lastly, this is kind of a term of art, but it is liberally construed in favor of open government, meaning that a lot of times board members or council members, not here of course, but other places, they think they can try to outsmart the Open Meetings Act. But it is essential, as we'll talk about later, that there are criminal penalties. And so the idea is that if it's not being done open, if it's not being done in an open meeting, you run that risk unless, again, there's that exception to criminal violations and other actions against the board and other items that were actually voted on during the meeting. So again, the agenda indicates the time, place, and subject matter of each discussion. If it is not on the agenda, then it should not be a subject matter being discussed.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
Because it's my understanding that if a question is asked, we're allowed to give factual answers as a response. So just, I'm not picking on myself. I know you weren't attacking anyone. But if someone asked if we were removing the volleyball court, I then am allowed per the Open Meeting Act to answer that question because it's a factual answer. Is that correct?
So I would recommend if it's not on the agenda, then it's not be something that even is
So then
discussed.
How would we avoid that ruling in the Open Texas Act that says if a citizen asks a question, then we should give a factual answer based on the knowledge that we have available?
So the purpose of public comment is not to ask questions of the board or of the council. And so if you would like to answer questions that they have, I would recommend doing so one-on-one after the meeting. Otherwise, as we saw tonight, it ends up opening up discussion and where we start having deliberation potentially, opinions are shared, and when an item is not on the agenda, it really shouldn't be a topic of discussion, even answering questions. Again, public comment is not public question time. It is simply for them to state their opinion for 2 or 3 minutes. And if the item that they're wanting more information on is not on the agenda, the appropriate response would be, thank you. And that's that. You just really run the risk of violating the Open Meetings Act. And so, again, because I'll go back to the fact that it is liberally construed in favor of open government, I'm going to give you the safest answer, which is simply to say thank you for your time, and you're certainly welcome to discuss items not on the agenda one-on-one with members of the public. Because again, remember, the agenda shows what items are going to be discussed. And so just think of it as a member of the public. Maybe I wanted to hear about this board's opinions on the volleyball court, or I wanted to hear an update on it. How would I know that from this agenda? And how would I know after the fact to go watch the meeting or to see the minutes to figure out what was stated about it? We wouldn't know that. And so that's something else to think about. It's not just about the legal compliance, but it's also ensuring that the purpose of Open Meetings Act is also to give the chance for the members of the public to be here to hear what's being discussed, to know what's going to be discussed, and give feedback on it in a public comment session when that item is going to be discussed. And so if we start answering questions or start talking about issues that aren't on the agenda, you're not giving those members of the public who may also be interested in that topic the opportunity to come here and do so themselves. All right, let's see here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. When does the Open Meetings Act generally apply? So a quorum is present and discusses public business. It applies to city councils, city boards and commissions, and type AB corporation, board of adjustment, planning and zoning commission, other governmental bodies, county, school districts. So just about any government body, all the boards and commissions appointed by the city council, the EDC corporations, they are all subject to the Open Meetings Act. And so, of course, that includes you all. It does not apply to purely social gatherings, attendance of public officials at conferences or trainings, ceremonial events, or press conferences. So, for example, Hazlitt has a 4th of July event coming up. If a majority of y'all are there, that's not going to be a quorum. However, if y'all decide to start deliberating on items that should be discussed at an open meeting, you run the risk of a violation. So, but again, it's not going to apply at those, but it will apply at all of our public meetings here. Secondly, like I said, let's talk about what a quorum is. And a quorum is a majority of a governmental body, unless defined differently by applicable law or the charter or some other law like that. And so for 7 people, that would be 4 is the quorum. And then from that, from our the charter, or from, sorry, not the charter, from chapter 1 of our code of ordinances, it would require a majority of those 4 people to vote on anything, to approve anything.
Could I interrupt you one more time? I have a question regarding the quorum when the board is not fully staffed.
Mhm.
So if we only have 5 active members, do we still need 4 to constitute a quorum?
No, it would just be a majority of whatever of the members then there. So if you were to have only 4 members on this board, all 4 would have to be at every meeting. It wouldn't simply be that's the other thing though, because you couldn't just have 3, and so you would want to make sure to have at least 4. Let's see here. Quorum must be present to convene a meeting. And then what constitutes a meeting? We kind of just talked about this. So it's a deliberation between a quorum of a governmental body or between a quorum of a governmental body and another person, during which public business or public policy over which the governmental body has supervision or control is discussed or considered, or during which the governmental body takes formal action. Or a gathering conducted by the governmental body or for which the governmental body is responsible. A quorum of members is present, followed by the governmental body, and members receive information from give information to, ask questions of, or receive questions from any third person, including an employee of the governmental body, about public business or public policy over which the governmental body has supervision or control. So lots of words to say. Pretty much any time a quorum of all gathered together, that would be subject to the Open Meetings Act. And so if 4 of you got together at someone's house to discuss these matters that are before you, that would probably be an unlawful meeting because it wouldn't have been properly noticed. It would have been properly regulated under the act. Yes.
I have a question, and park board members often follow to help if they plan, such
Putting
as
up lights in the
4th of
park.
July.
Yeah.
And so my question is, generally, there's more than 4, and should we not post on the agenda, here's this event, and there's a possibility that a quorum of the park board will be present, but no discussion?
There are many cities who do that just to be completely safe. And if that is something that you would like to do, I would highly recommend it. However, as I mentioned, those social events are not subject to the Open Meetings Act. However, again, who's to say what items you all will discuss at that event? And so it may be a good idea to do that. And so there are other cities that do that. And so if that's what y'all want to do, then I think it would be a really good idea to do so. All right, and kind of answered that question. So it does not include a social function unrelated to the public business that is conducted by the body, attendance at a convention or workshop. If formal action is not taken, any discussion of public business is incidental to the social function, convention, workshop, ceremonial event, or press conference. And so again, some cities play it completely safe and they post notices of forums at these type of events, and many do not. So I think you would be safe to either way, but it might be a better option to post it even at those social events. All right, number 4, where can a meeting be held? Meeting must be held in a location accessible to the general public. So again, not at your house. Type A and Type B corporations must conduct their meetings within the city limits. Of course, that does not apply to you all, but it's always a good idea probably just to have your meeting right here in the Hazlet City Hall gathering area. And so that way it's open to the public and it has to be posted and all of that. Number 5, where and how long must an agenda be posted? Placed readily accessible to the general public and at all times for at least 72 hours before the scheduled time of the meeting. So that's why you often will get, oh, can we add this to the agenda now? And if it's that 72 hours beforehand, then it's just not going to happen. It can't be discussed because members of the public have to have that 72 hours prior notice before the meeting. Number 6, now this is where you start seeing that much of this law probably hasn't been updated too much since the 1960s when it was adopted, but we are required to post notice of each meeting on a bulletin board at a place convenient to the public in the city hall. And so that's why you see when you walk in the front door outside, you have that community bulletin board that shows all the public notices. I don't know how many people actually read them or how many people get their notice from the community bulletin board, but that is why we have it, and it's because it is required under state law. Most people probably get it from the city's website, which has been addressed by the Act. And so for cities that do maintain an internet website, it is required to be posted there as well. Let's see. Must also post notice of the meeting and the agenda on the internet website. So that is a recent requirement. And so that is why Hazlet's already been doing that many years. So we are good there. Let's see. Good faith exception if the failure to post on the internet is due to a technical problem beyond the control of the governmental body or economic development corporation. Next, how specific must the wording for an agenda item be? giving written notice of the date, hour, place, and the subject of each meeting held by your governmental body. The more important particular issue is to the community, the more specific the posted notice must be. Avoid generic descriptions or topics. And so that is kind of an important point for you all, though. For example, you cannot just simply state discussion on parks. That would not be specific enough to give notice to the public about which park you're discussing, why you're discussing about the park, what issues you're talking about the park. Instead, you'll want to be at least a little bit more specific on that, because unfortunately, although you are the Parks and Recreation Board and you are tasked with providing advisory opinions to the City Council on parks, you still must have an agenda that is specific enough for people to know what items are going to be discussed beyond just the parks. And I see here you've done a great job of detailing which events and which type of parks and which parks are going to be discussed. Number 9 is an agenda posting indicating public comment adequate notice. Yes, and so that public comment does provide sufficient notice of, under the Open Meetings Act, of the subject matter of public comment, or the general body addresses governmental body about its concerns. However, number 10, an item called City Manager's Report is not sufficient to provide adequate notice. Some things like City Manager's Report, Mayor's Update, Council and Other Report. Instead, you really need to have something that tells people the subject of what's going to be discussed. In a city council comment on or receive a report about items of community interest without the item being placed on the agenda. Section 551.0415 to the Texas Government Code concerning items of community interest, which no action will be taken. And so they may receive from city staff or another council member a report about items of community interest during a meeting without posting the item, provided no action is taken. Now you may be asking what exactly is quote unquote community interest, and so that would be expression of thanks, congratulations, or condolence, information regarding holiday schedule, honorary salutatory recognition of a public official, however, not discussing whether or not they should remain in office or any items about their public employment, a reminder of upcoming community event, a few other information regarding a social, ceremonial, community event organized or sponsored by another entity that was attended or scheduled to be attended by a member of the city council, as well as announcements involving an imminent threat to public health or safety. So I notice here, and just like we do at the city council meeting, we actually list out the public, items that items of community interest. And so, but those are really the only items that we're supposed to be able to take information on and discuss on without it actually being an item on the agenda. And so again, it's not anything else beyond the kind of the pretty broad list, but again, not items that would actually be deliberated on by you all.
I have an inquiry about number 11.
Okay.
Just the wording. It says, can a city council comment? And since we're not city council, we don't follow under the city council bylaws. So does this also apply to us? And how do we differentiate that based on your presentation?
Yes. So if I say city council, it's most likely, and especially in this regard, in this example, it's going to apply to the board as well. So when I say city council, that means an item of community interest, for example, the items that you spoke about today, that would still apply to you all, the board. And so I apologize. Some of these are interchangeable, where when I say city council, it simply means the board in which is holding the meeting. So number 12, no, you cannot change the date and time of an open meeting without posting a corrected notice for 72 hours. You do not have the authority to do so. Instead, you have to wait 72 hours to do that. Also, no, you cannot change the location of an open meeting without posting a corrected notice for 72 hours. Sometimes there's been cases where meetings have so many people that you feel the need to move it to a bigger room. Not clear whether such a change would constitute literal compliance with the act, but I would point out, again, not that this would probably be a problem here, that you don't necessarily have to have, if you have more people in a room than you can hold, then you might have to have an area outside of that room where people are only able to participate virtually. And so that might be the better idea than moving to a different room, even within the same building. And of course, the purpose of this is so that you're not nobody's being tricked into thinking it's in one place, but then it's actually being in another place, or even within the same building. And so, again, not going to be a problem here. The meetings will almost always be right here in this room. Number 14, can we continue a meeting to the immediate next day without reposting? The answer to this is actually yes. And so for whatever reason, the meeting is just running too long or some emergency occurs, you can simply continue the meeting to the immediate next day without reposting it. Number 15, this is the question you asked. You may not deliberate or make any decision about an unposted issue at the meeting. You are correct. You can respond with a statement of specific factual information or cite the governmental body's existing policy on the issue, or you can direct the staff making the inquiry to visit with staff, or direct the person making the inquiry to visit with staff, or offer to place the item on the agenda at a future meeting. Again, just again from my experience from this one meeting this evening, if it's simply a recitation of facts, right back to the person, that is one thing. But when other people start opining on it and providing their own version of whatever the issue may be, you start getting into a bit more of the deliberation. And the safest option would be simply to direct the person to visit with staff, visit with you after the meeting, and so then move on to whatever else is the next item or the next person speaking. All right. Number 16, what right does the public have to speak on a particular agenda item? The Open Meetings Act allows the public to address the body regarding the agenda item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. However, the city can adopt reasonable rules. The public has the right to attend, observe, and record meetings. Number 17, what duty does a governmental body have to produce minutes of open meetings? A governmental body shall prepare and keep minutes or make a recording of each open meeting of the body. The minutes must state the subject of each deliberation and indicate each vote, order, decision, or other action taken. And so we do both here. The meetings are both recorded, I believe even including Parks Board meetings, as well as we also produce minutes. Number 18, again, not really applicable to you all since you aren't the record-keeping authority for the city, but approved minutes must be maintained permanently by the city. A tape of the meeting for the purpose of preparing minutes must be maintained for 90 days. So again, the minutes they're here with the city, the record's forever, and so whatever decisions you all make, it's kind of written down and it's part of the city records forever. Executive sessions, I don't know how often y'all go into executive session, but it is something that is permitted under specific guidelines under the Open Meetings Act. Those exceptions are personnel, consultations with an attorney, discussion about the value or transfer of real property, economic development matters. To convene into an executive session, the presiding officer must take the following steps. Identify the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act during that open session. And then during the executive session, the presiding officer states the date and time. You discuss the executive session matter within the confines of that exception. So no deliberating on other things that you just didn't want the public to hear about. In addition, this is kind of a big one, you cannot vote in the executive session. So any votes that have to be made on any items discussed in the executive session has to be done in open session after you conclude the executive session and reconvene in open session. Probably the only one that would be applicable to you all would be in case you needed to consult with me as your attorney. That's under section 551.071. And so, but that is about pending or contemplated litigation or about settlement offers, any legal advice on any matters on the agenda as well. So although you probably won't be involved in hopefully any litigation settlement with the city, there may be matters that require consultation with me that are posted on the agenda, and we can go into executive session on that. The other ones, again, not going to be as applicable, but economic development issues, deliberate offer financial or other incentive to a business prospect. Oftentimes people want to just go into executive session to discuss a contract. That's really not applicable under that. Again, it's really specifically with economic development incentives. Purchase or exchange of real estate is another one that you can go into, but only to the extent that discussing it in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the city's ability to purchase the property. All right, personnel. Again, y'all don't really have any authority over personnel within the city, but that's a common one for the city council to go into to discuss any public officer or employee or complaints or charges against an employee. This one, though, is kind of important to you all, again, just in case that you are ever in an executive session. Open Meetings Act does not specify who may or may not attend an executive session. The governmental body has discretion to determine who may attend. However, they may not admit those whose attendance is contrary to the legal basis for the executive session. So there are situations where a board member or city council member may be legally adverse, as in they have sued the city, and they would not, if we go into executive session to discuss that lawsuit, they would not be permitted to be in that executive session. Likewise, citizens cannot be invited to an executive session under most circumstances. Otherwise, it would be an unauthorized closed meeting, which certainly makes sense. Like I said, no votes or final actions may be made during executive session. Everything must be done in open session, even if the deliberations are subject and can be done in executive session. The final vote has to be done outside. Again, with the executive session, you are required to produce a certified agenda or make a tape recording of every executive session, unless the closed session is being held under the exception for consultation with an attorney. More things about a certified agenda. I'm just going to skip over that. Not really applicable to you all. Certified agenda stays private. Not something that we would then post later like we do with other minutes of the open session. Must be maintained for 2 years. Lastly, or not lastly, but another item we have is each elected or appointed public official of governmental body shall complete a 1 to 2 hour open trainings course on the Opens Meeting Act within 90 days after the date the member takes the oath of office or assumes responsibility as member of the governmental body. And so that does apply to you all. Let's see, number 32. Can less than a quorum of a board or city council visit over the phone without violating the Open Meetings Act? And this is a big one because this happens quite a bit, or hopefully it doesn't happen quite a bit, but it's an issue that has come up many times here in Texas. And the mere fact that 2 members of a governmental body visit over the phone does not in itself constitute a violation of state law. However, if the members are using individual telephone conversations or are making such telephone calls to conduct their deliberations about public business, there may be a potential criminal violation. So this is what's often called a walking quorum. And so how I picture a walking quorum is that I walk over to another board member and discuss something, and then that board member then walks over to another board member and discusses the same issue. And so even though all 3 people never actually meet at the same time, the fact that they're discussing the same item just at different times could still be considered a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And so if there's text message chains, if there's all sorts of things even if it's just 2 people or less than the quorum of the board, could still be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So that's something that it's a common question and something that just because you may be discussing things amongst one another and outside of the open meeting, but just keep that in mind that if you are discussing an item of public significance with each other, there may be that chance if it's kind of falls underneath the category that I discussed.
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
How can I, if I talk to Dana about something, how can I control whether she goes and talks to Sarah about it?
That's the risk. Called Neville's term I was often hearing. So let's say that you had a quorum of 3. Your quorum was you have to form, how you have such. So I actually, it just come up. Open meeting.
And I'll also say, we're about to talk about criminal penalties. It's about knowing. So, did you know that this was going to occur? Did you intend for your conversation to circumvent the Open Meetings Act? Or are you simply just talking to one person and that's it, period? That there's not any intent, there's not any knowledge that that conversation will then continue on to another board member, then on to another board member, and so on and so forth.
That's what I was asking. If I'm just talking to Dana about something and then with no intention for her to pass it on to anybody else, and then she happens to mention it to somebody else, how is that is that still in violation of that when I didn't knowingly want her to do that?
So again, it's going to be all about whether you knew or didn't know your intent to do so. And so if your intent is to circumvent the Open Meetings Act, that would obviously be for a prosecutor to prove. But that it kind of goes down to that, which is kind of a tough answer because I wish I could give you, for sure, if you didn't know she would do that, then there's no criminal risk. There's no risk of violating the act. But that's ultimately, again, we're about to talk about the criminal penalty. It's ultimately for a prosecutor. They'll look at all the facts and they'll look at all your communications and see, okay, was this just an unintentional violation, or was this a conspiracy to circumnavigate the Open Meetings Act? And so that's just something to keep in mind. And so that or if you're in the middle person, so you're the first person, you obviously don't know what you're saying is going to be spread to the next person. But if you're that next person, you need to start thinking about that and how you may be putting other board members in legal jeopardy by sharing their opinions with other board members in similar actions like that.
I have two specific questions.
Okay.
One is an innocent, what I'm calling an innocent email text, for example, that says, hey, what's your shirt size? Since it doesn't directly apply to the public, but it would be a topic, say we're ordering shirts or something. Would that be considered in violation, or would that just be because it's not that important? We could have a group text amongst us that says, hey, we're meeting at 8 to set up the fireworks. Or it's not that anything's going to happen. I want to make sure that we're not sending a text message to a group of us, like I might do, and say, hey, the flags are going up at 5 on Monday night. Who can help? Are we allowed to have that sort of interaction with the text message where it's nothing really business related, but it might apply to something like that?
So it's not, everything you just mentioned would not be an item that would be subject to deliberation, would not be a public item. However, it would be recommended that I would not do a group chat with the full board or even with multiple members of the board, because as soon as one person starts deliberating or brings up an item of public issue, then all of a sudden you were all responsible. You're all in that chain and you all see that. And so all of a sudden that one person has now spoken his or her opinion to the entire board about an issue, and you all have now violated the Open Meetings Act potentially. So if there is a situation in which you want to say, okay, well, who can volunteer to do this? A good suggestion would be to have a staff person, ask the staff person to send out an email to the full body and say, this is what's happening. This is, if there's anybody who can help to do that. But otherwise, I would highly, highly, highly recommend not doing group chats on cell phone or anything like that, because that is a really easy way to accidentally start violating the Open Meetings Act. Even if the intent at first was to simply say, oh, let's raise the flag, or who can help out with fireworks. It's just not a good idea.
And then my second question is, what if I obtain an email that contains information that may have addressed a topic that's going to be discussed, and say, I guess Katrina wouldn't count. So Cindy sends me an email that is something that Dana sent her, and now I'm reading it just because she was saying, oh, read this, but didn't realize she had deleted the other part. I guess my question is, if there's an email that contains any sensitive information, hey, who do you want to vote for the chair next week, or anything like that, what would I do if I come into contact with that information? inadvertently. And I'm like, oh, I think this might be violating the Open Meetings Act. What do I do with it? Do I then come to the city? Do I consult you?
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to not necessarily just ignore the email, but certainly not respond to it. Obviously, you can't control what emails are sent to you, but you're only responsible for those that are sent that you send yourself. And so that's why oftentimes council, when I send out emails to the full council, there's a disclaimer that that a reply all could ultimately be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, simply because that you start deliberating on this and that, and we're not in an open meeting. An email is not an open meeting, and so there's really not much you can do with the email other than just make sure that you don't respond yourself or forward it on. It's not really something you probably need to bring to my attention at that point, but it's something that I would say we shouldn't be forwarding on emails like that either.
I wanted to add, if you run into that, bring it to me and talk it. I'll be. The other is that when an individual volunteers all our such they are signing up to exercise a lot of this. So is just try to or refrain. Try to just refrain. Having
And I would also say this isn't really the subject of tonight's presentation, but your communications, both email, text message, whether it's your personal email or if you have a Hazlet email address, official government one, is going to be subject to the Public Information Act. And so if someone were to say, I want all emails of the board members about this topic that was discussed, even if it's coming from your personal email address account, those emails may still be subject to Public Information Act, and it could be subject to disclosure under the Act. And so that's something really to think about, is that when you are sending emails about items of public interest of that you are deliberating on or anything like that, those are emails that could be released to the public. And so if you are violating the Open Meetings Act, those could be things that end up being released to the public, and that oftentimes is how matters get referred to the district attorney, which is what we're going to talk about next, is the criminal penalties. So the old law up till 2019 was conspiracy to circumvent the act by meeting in numbers less than a quorum. Texas Court of Criminal Appeals found that provision unconstitutionally vague, and so instead we have that has been replaced with a more definite violation. And so this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So a member of a governmental body commits an offense if the member knowingly engages, again, knowingly is the important term there, knowingly engages in at least one communication among a series of communications that each occur outside of a meeting that concern an issue within the jurisdiction of the governmental body in which the members engaging in individual communications constitute fewer than a quorum of members, but the members engaging in the series of communications constitute a quorum of members. So again, that's that walking quorum we talked about. And two, knew at the time the member engaged in the communication that the series of communications involved or, make it the next slide, involved or would involve a quorum, and B, would constitute a deliberation once a quorum of members engaged in the series of communications. So again, it's all about knowledge. So not to get too law school on you, but in criminal law, you have to have a mental state. And so in this case, you have to knowingly commit these acts. And so did you know at the time that these communications, that these series of communications would involve a quorum? If not, then there's probably not going to be a crime. But if you did know that, then that's kind of, I use the old terminology of the old law, the conspiracy to circumvent the Open Meetings Act, because that is essentially what it is. You would be conspiring with another member of the board to not have an open meeting, to meet in less than a quorum, or whatever violation it may be. You have a question?
This is going to be still like a silly question, but I don't know what information that you're talking about sharing, but we're going to, it was at an event, we're going to say, we need porta pot over here. I mean, what information are you talking about that we can't share with each other? Because I may, tell Sarah there's toilet paper in the bathroom, and she may go tell Serge we need some toilet paper in the bathroom. Yeah. What kind of information are you talking about?
So I will go back to, I think that kind of goes back to what is a deliberation. And so let me find that. But it's typically items that are subject to what you typically discuss and what matters are involving the governmental body. So if a typical item is park maintenance and replacement of toilet paper, I mean, that's probably, I don't want to say, oh, that's probably not going to be a violation, but again, you just have to use your, I don't want to say common sense, but like your best intents as to what that would be. And so if this is something that would be deliberated on at one of your meetings, then I would say I would avoid trying to talk about it even at the event, because that could be considered a walking forum. And I understand that it's kind of difficult because you all have such a broad scope and all of that. But at the same time, I don't want you to be afraid to talk about things. And oh, the sky is not, the weather is nice today. Well, that's not going to be a violation of it. So again, I'm not going to have too much more to say. Mayor,
I think that,
Let me help out.
Yeah.
Then we made an example a little early about who am I going to vote for here. Those things that you have influence, you don't have any influence over. So I don't know why you're talking about toilet paper. You should be
She's
calling
making-
me or public works.
but she's making a good point. So if we have our walkie-talkies and Serge says, hey, we're out of this, can you get this? And then she passes it on. Or Serge and I are at the movie in the park. And we say, hey, I really like where In-N-Out is set up right here. I really don't like the way the screen is. We should turn it. That is something that we're going to discuss at the meeting. And we often discuss it at the park event because we're there live. If it's just me and Serge in the park during this event, which happens, sometimes it's just me and Cindy, we're going to say, oh, this looks good over here. This doesn't look good over there.
Yeah.
Are we subject to
You're exchanging
violating it?
ideas and things, but eventually you're gonna talk about it as a group and make a decision. Don't do that decision.
Do we?
So I have a question though. As an example, last board meeting, we talked about potentially having a gazebo in the park. All right, so we talked about it a little bit, but if three of us go over there and kind of look around during the meeting, the event, hey, this would be a good place for the gazebo. We're just kind of talking about it. We're not really making a decision, but my thought is this would be a good place. Are those appropriate to have after the meeting? That's like next week or the 4th of July. We're walking around. Hey, look, we know we're going to have a gazebo here. I like this spot right here. This is where I think it would be
my
nice.
recommendation would be that those deliberations should be at an open meeting, because
Okay.
that is something clearly under your purview about advising the council on park matters. And so obviously, again, I doubt that there would ever be any sort of criminal violation for a discussion of, oh, well, something is wrong, we need to go fix it, or we are out of toilet paper. But if you start discussing things like that about, placement of different parks facilities, without it being at an open meeting, again, to go back to my very first point, you are preventing the public from being able to hear that opinion, from being able to opine on it, to be able to interject their own thoughts. And so that's just something to think about. Is this something that you would want that the public should hear about? Is this a deliberation about your main purpose, which is to provide advice to the city council about parks and recreation services. And so if it is, then that should be something that should be left to an open meeting in front of here at the park board.
Okay, I have one more question. It was suggested a couple of meetings ago that we form a subcommittee of 3 or 4 people and give them the authority to make decisions. Now, is that something that we should be doing? We didn't
So the
decide to do
subcommittee-
that.
So subcommittees can make decisions not on behalf of the whole board. Again, the board, a majority of the board is the only way in which this board can, a vote by a majority of the board is the only way this board can make decisions. That subcommittee can be an advisory committee to this advisory committee, but there is no decision, that subcommittee has no decision-making authority. Instead, they can come up with their own decision and then say, this is our recommendation, and present it to the full board for the full board's approval. But a subcommittee is not going to have any sort of decision-making power.
Why is that subcommittee not in violation of the Open Meetings Act? If they're doing the same thing that we would be doing at the park, so if Serge and I are discussing gazebo placement, why would it be different if we're in a closed room having a subcommittee meeting?
Well, a subcommittee meeting would be publicly noticed. You know, it wouldn't just be, it would be publicly noticed. It would be an approved subcommittee as approved by the full board. And so that subcommittees would not be, that's kind of an exception to the Open Meetings Act, except that the fact you still have to have open meetings, but it's not going to involve any issues with quorum or anything like that. So you boards and city councils, they're all allowed to have, 3-4 person subcommittee to kind of have that, to make those kind of decisions and provide that kind of advice to the full board.
Okay,
Let me
on
share one item. Because in an open meeting, you will designate the sub, let's say it's the gazebo sub, and you're in that open meeting, you're specifying who the members are. All that's done. And then at subcommittee, they can go out, travel, gather their findings, it can be food, and come back and go, okay, park board as a whole, here's our recommendation.
But you suggested that we have a subcommittee and give them the authority to make the decision on whether to spend that money on that item.
To bring back to the
No.
board vote,
That was not the way it was presented. But,
maybe that's the way you start.
okay. Then there was another occasion when the board asked Dana and I to go talk with James about a specific area and then report back to the board. That's the way it should be handled.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
During our meeting last week or last month, we were talking about a specific area in the park where there's some swing sets,
Mhm.
and the board asked Dana and I to go and talk with James
Mhm.
about that specific area and what could be put in there, and then we're bringing that information back to the board.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be handled,
Yeah,
correct?
that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Again, you are allowed to communicate with city staff. A city staff member is not going to be, it's not going to impact quorum or anything like that. So 2 individuals speaking with city staff about an item or 1 person, that's perfectly fine. Again, recommended, keep that communication line open.
I have one more question too. On when Cindy, what she was just commenting about the subcommittee, because one thing that was mentioned is it takes us so long to get anything done because we only meet monthly, and so that subcommittee can make those decisions and things would get purchased faster.
No. The subcommittee can meet and bring their recommendation or staff. Here's what we'd like to see, this pricing on this, that. It is something a group or 1 or 2 or 3 that can work with staff, administration, week or daily, whatever they need to advance these projects on. And then if there is a decision that has to be made, whether it's what of equipment to buy, or how much, or a change in budget is needed, that comes back to the full board to vote on.
Once a month, that we can make those decisions.
So I just have I think this might, if I'm incorrect, please let me know. So if I now, as the current chair, designate a volleyball committee, as long as one board member is a member of that committee, I can have Ms. Whaling be on the committee. I can have, I don't know, my neighbor be on the committee. I can have somebody who used to play volleyball and Hazlet be on the committee. But Dana's going to be the chair of that committee. They can go and meet as a subcommittee, get us estimates on all the costs, all the things, decide what maybe needs to be done, and then bring that back to the board for review. Is that correct? That would be the purpose of the subcommittee. They're not making any decisions, but they're discussing and collecting information and making recommendations.
Yeah.
Because we've designated that particular committee.
And so I appreciate all the questions on the subcommittees, and unfortunately, I just wasn't prepared to answer
okay.
all these details about
Sorry.
subcommittee. And so I think what I would be happy to do is just kind of prepare just a brief email about how the subcommittees work, because part of that is going to be the Open Meetings Act, legal requirements. Some of that is going to be just the policies of the city and for this board specifically. And so I'm happy to kind of take those questions down and kind of answer them one by one. And so that way we kind of have a hard answer on each of these questions so that we know how to proceed.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can continue. We'll stop interrupting
Okay.
you.
I'm just going to make myself a note. So again, the Open Meetings Act violations, it's not just, we'll void decisions that are being made. If you are found guilty of this crime, it is an actual criminal offense, and it's a misdemeanor that the punishment ranges from $100 to $500 fine, as well as 1 to 6 months in the county jail. Also know that if you are charged with this crime, you would also have to procure your own attorney, because I and my firm, we represent the city on a civil basis, but we do not do criminal defense work. We do not criminally defend any of our clients from criminal matters. And so that's another reason why a strict compliance with the Open Meetings Act is so important. There's also fines, civil penalties for unauthorized closed meetings, failing to keep a certified agenda, release of a certified agenda is a Class B misdemeanor. Again, we just want to make sure we are strongly compliant with the Open Meetings Act. And so I am not the one that enforces this, that instead that's the county and district attorney's office. And so any violation that someone finds, again, that's not something that would typically be, that's typically reported from someone from the public who believes that how an action was taken or how a meeting was held violates the Open Meetings Act, and they are able to refer that to the district attorney's office, who conducts an investigation. And so any charges may be had there. In addition, while an action taken by a governmental body in an unlawful open meeting is not automatically void, it is voidable, meaning that a judge in some sort of civil proceeding may invalidate it. Let's see. Governmental body cannot then retroactively, take action to fix a violation of the Open Meetings Act. However, they could subsequently ratify the action in an open meeting. However, that ratification would only be effective from the date the meeting was held, not from the date that the initial vote that was possibly unlawful occurred. And so that is it. Like I said, it was very thorough, and so I appreciate all your questions. If you have any more of me, I'm happy to answer them now. In addition, you're welcome to email me with any questions. Just don't email the whole board. Just email me.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Because we're called an advisory board.
Yes.
But we also have a budget that is verified by city council every year. We have the option to spend that money without city council review, correct?
The budget is approved by
Correct.
line item.
Right. So if we're spending that,
So your request,
so if we have $100,000 to spend on a playground equipment, and we find the equipment that we want, and it's within that budget, we're authorized to go ahead and spend that money on the playground equipment.
Right, and where, okay, but most often buy or get service, someone will build something for you. Eventually, there's gonna be a purchase order required, or a contract is required, and that's got to buy.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the answer to your question is it depends, because even when the budget is made, we still have to comply with Texas purchasing laws, city policy on how much administration can spend without council approval, things like that. So $100,000 playground equipment would be subject to public bid because it's over that $50,000 amount. So again, it just kind of depends on the expenditure, but typically when council has approved the budget and the line item, then that's kind of their approval. And so again, but it just kind of depends on what it is.
It's good to communicate with my office, be me as budget officer, because I can help you get data from A to B. I understand what you want to do, help you get there later.
Just because we're going to have another park. Our previous park, we got our 3 bids. We looked at them. We decided as a park board, we made a recommendation to council, and council has the choice not to approve that. But if they didn't approve that, do we have any say since it was given to us as budget? I guess that was maybe what she was asking. If we're budgeted, you've got $150,000. We take the bids, find the best one, make. I mean, they did. They said, "Oh, that's great. Thank you for doing that." But what do we have to then submit? I guess I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Do we then submit a recommendation to council to purchase that expensive item because it's a large dollar amount? Is that the correct way to do that?
So you had $100,000, what you wanted was $75,000. You're under your budget, but you're over this $50,000 threshold, and you had to go to public bid on it. And so you got 3 bids, and the board looked at it and go, all right, we're bidding on the basis of best value. Doesn't mean the cheapest. So best value, take best value. Then you're within the realm to notify the budget office. All the money flows to that office, that position. Just what you're doing. And then there's no, that you can go ahead and notifying the budget office, the public works person, we want the person.
So,
Because the council has authorized a certain amount of money for X, Y, Z, and you went out to bid for it, X, Y, Z, less than your budget already authorized.
so is the budget officer a separate office to the mayor?
The mayor has 2 offices, budget officer and the mayor is, technical term is the chief executive officer.
Do you turn your cowboy hat around when you're the other one? So we know which one. That's a
I
joke.
have
I'm
2 different
teasing.
color
I'm
ones.
teasing.
Dollar sign on it.
One with a dollar sign on it.
Yes, appreciate it. Again, any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help.
All right, next we have Mayor Hulsey for a presentation and status of the congressional appropriations request made for the Hazlet Farmers Market Pavilion and Community Teaching Garden.
Speaking of, but I'm going to get this to audio video. Okay, there we go. I want to back up to the former item, and yes, this board and every board we have are required to have this training. with what you just presented, does that constitute, because you told me this was approved by the AG?
So I'm going to need to ask, that was something, this presentation has been approved by the Office of Attorney General. I just need to double check that it's okay that I was presented it first. So
Understood.
I'll check that, and if that is the case, that this is conflict of training, so that way you don't have to listen to that thing.
I was like, I think we've all listened to it.
But it was good. It's good for all of us to hear it at least once a year. All right then. Presentation of the status on the congressional appropriations request for a Haslett Farmers Market Pavilion and Community Teaching Gardens. Why don't you go ahead and pull that up? All right. Probably starting in late January, certainly in February, working with another attorney. They had told me that every year each congressperson has a fund called appropriations, and they can take that money and distribute it to whom they want in their congressional district. Ours is Congressional District 12, who is Kay Granger. And we were reviewing different items with regards to grant requests or things of that nature. But he brought up this appropriations, and there weren't too many items. In fact, it was difficult to come up with any grants that we could request. But I told him, I said, one of the things that I know that would be desired is a dedicated farmers market. We used to have one. It was attended to quite regularly, but it was there's no parking lot, and nonetheless, I'm not going to diverse on that. And also, community teaching garden, which, with regard, it expands into horticulture, agriculture, things of that nature. So I did put in a request for appropriations. And this is the facility that I made a $2.3 million request to Kay Granger's office for this project. This is approximately 7.5 acres. It fronts Schoolhouse Road. The drive on the left is the drive going to the public work facilities, for those who may know that area. And so I submitted that, and Congresswoman's district director, her staff people, requested, do you have any renderings that you could send us? And I go, well, sure, I've been working on some, and give me 2 days. I will have them in your office by that time.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Yes.
I don't actually know what that means to have renderings, like drawings or.
I'm going to show you what renderings
thank
are. It's an architectural term, but I'll show you here what renderings are. And I said, sure. Well, the good news is, cutting to a long story short, is Congresswoman Kay Granger chose our project to advance to Washington, D.C. to the Congressional Appropriations Committee for full funding. And what's the really good news about that? Congresswoman Kay Granger has been chair of the Congressional Appropriations Committee for years. And this is her last term. She is serving as Chairman Demetrius. And the word is, she'll get what she asked for. We stand a good chance. I should know by the end of this month, end of July. The reason being is that the Appropriation Committee breaks for summer vacation.
And they should know that at that time who's being selected for funding and who's not. So, nonetheless, 7.5 acres. This is a pavilion. It's the same size as what you have in the community park. Not as tall. Don't need 20-foot tall pavilion for a farmer's market. And there are a lot of farmers around, not here in the immediate Hassett area, but surrounding. There are orchards, as to say, and other farms. And but also you have a outlet for things like the cottage industry people, who make breads and pies at home or candles and things like that. But the focus is farmers market, farmers bringing their produce here. And also the community teaching garden, in putting this program together, is that Tarrant County or Texas A&M AgriLife extension agents will be giving us guidance on how to operate these facilities and whom to call and things like that. They'll be out regularly to do teaching in horticulture and gardening and things of that nature. So let's see what the renderings are. That's just the plan view of it. It looks a little different from the other, but this is from a program called Revit. It's a 3D modeling software. Can you go to the next page? All right, there's a shot. These are scale drawings. So you see the pavilion, just a shot from the side. That's community teaching gardens. The raised beds in this budget is 8,000 square feet of raised bed, and yes, it's irrigated. That's a actually I got on there about 2,000 square foot building. Talking with Texas A&M, they said we need a classroom size to seat 100 people to do what we do in teaching these programs. And so that will accommodate that. Another shot. And yes, there are permanent restrooms out here in this project. And is there another shot? There we are. Okay. I don't know which way you're going, back and forth or what. There you go. There's the last shot. That's from the front porch of the teaching facility. We had a lot of support. We got support letters from Nate Schatzline, our state representative. Of course, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Agent Office. Ms. Davis sent a support letter. Gary Fickus, our commissioner, Precinct 3, sent a support letter. We got support letters from the community, the EDC Type A, Type B, and City Council had a joint resolution to send in as a support letter. The Tarrant Area Food Bank CEO sent a support letter. They're all excited about this. This is a big deal. An interesting aspect of this is, in my research, is that if you take I-35, 114 on the north, and 287 on the west, that's a 54 square mile area, and there's not one farmer's market, not counting the store, but I'm talking a farmer's market. There's not one farmer's market in that 54 square mile area.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's going to oversee it? And it looks like
Texas
there's going to be a
A&M.
lot.
Well, facilities, the city will oversee it. Taking care of the building and things like that.
Well,
But
and it looks like there's a lot of area that'll have to be mowed and taken care of. And
yes, the city will.
And who will take care of the community garden? Same thing, city?
The volunteers that work that. No, I'm not hiring anybody to grow you vegetables. So I have talked to citizens. They're very interested and excited about the opportunity to come and volunteer and work in this
Do you have a list of those?
with the leadership of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension folks.
What about Northwest ISD? Are you working with them? on
No.
this? No? See,
I-
like,
I there's an opportunity. I had to choose. I can't, I chose certain folks. Yes, NISD has horticulture programs. They got different programs. In fact, I did contact them asking for a support letter, and I never got it. It's interesting. Some of these organizations, including the school, might think it's competition, and I don't view it that way. But I didn't ask why, okay, I just didn't get a response. So, and not to say that won't happen in the future.
What stipulations apply to the grant in terms of shared space, shared use? Does it require that Texas A&M maintain the facility? Does it require that the city of Hazlet do something? Is there any terms and conditions associated with the grant?
No,
So they just give you $2 million and don't expect you to maintain it? Like, what's the catch of it? What's
there's
the
no
requirement?
catch. There's no catch.
Interesting.
But what I wanted to tell you is that I'm not going to be teaching in there every day, all day long.
Sure.
So this is a facility like we use here. And but also there will be more recreational offerings that can be made because we have an extra facility. We will have a pavilion out here that can be used for more recreational activity out that way.
I'm sorry to play devil's advocate, but the citizens of Haslett have asked for a community recreational facility for a number of years, and they were always told that it was too expensive and it would be too hard to have people man it and work it. And
Could
so
this be a
I
shared
think that
space?
some of the citizens are going to be a little bit objectionable to this money being spent there when
Well,
this is something they've asked for
Congresswoman
for a
Kate
long time.
Granger will appropriate $2.3 million for this.
There's no,
And
that's why
no, I have not found any. I've talked to a lot of folks. I have not talked to anybody in fact, they all go, wow, that's nice.
Well,
Now,
I know
I
for,
will
I know
acknowledge
for a fact
that
the
one of
people
the requests is a recreational facility. In fact, that's in your surveys.
it is number 4.
And
So there's no
I brought
exclusion in
that-
the grant that says
Huh?
we can't, that's what I was asking with my initial question. There's no exclusion in the grant that says it can only be used for educational purposes based on the agricultural component. So if we have this facility for teaching, like you said, we're not going to be using it every day, but say the senior citizens would like to use that building
Absolutely.
on Fridays, they could use that instead of, if they get too big to meet here, they would have that facility available for them as well.
right.
Okay.
It's
But
a
its
shared,
intention is to be to train and
a shared
educate
use.
agricultural.
The primary use
Got
for
it.
it, because of the funding, will be towards the AgriLife type programs. But that's not 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And like farmers market, typically one day on the weekend, or maybe 2 at best. But that leaves other times that pavilion can be open for other activity. So it's another resource that can be used. So that concludes my presentation. Just wanted to
I
let
have
you
a quick
know.
question for you, though.
Huh?
Parking wise, you didn't mention anything about the parking, except there'll be parking available.
Parking? Yeah. That represents
110.
100
Okay,
parking
cool.
spots.
All right.
And plus what you see, there's a road going around the pavilion for the farmers and actually they can drive up, and it was all scaled out, back their truck up to into the back to the pavilion. And A&M director that specializes in these things gave that recommendation.
Is your
So there's-
intention for that to be free to the vendors?
Huh?
Is your intention for that to be free to the vendors, or will there
No.
be a setup charge?
No, they'll charge.
And who's going to manage that? Texas A&M or the city of Haslett?
Probably neither. What we'll end up doing is we can hire a person, a management, farmers market management companies. They do that. They will manage all of that.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So like, we're talking, it's a teaching gardens facility. Like, so we're growing stuff. We're gonna,
Yeah,
you
that's
said there's not, but there's only.
more flowers, or we're growing something. Yeah.
Who? So you're gonna take
Volunteers volunteers who partake in that.
So then how do you control, like, just somebody drives by and decides they want the squash that the volunteers?
Say it again.
How do you control, like, the people coming in? We grew squash or tomatoes for the farmer's market, but,
Squash.
I mean, what are vegetables, like, whatever we're growing, how do
Yeah.
we control, like, who, people coming in and taking it if it's like, there's no one on the site all the time, just there if there's maintenance? Do you see
I
what I'm
think you're
saying?
getting, well, I haven't got all that solved. You're getting to operational issues that I'm
Okay.
just, we're on the front end. We're going to live and learn.
I do want to point out, though, that there was the people across the street were very much against this, and they have supported us in everything we've done in this
Yeah.
city. So there was some contention over getting this done.
One person. I get it. And I've talked to her since. And we're going to bring her in and be part of this. We talked about that. Guess what?
I
People
just
who
hope
get
so,
involved,
because-
people who get involved in learning to grow their home gardens or their horticulture, flowers and roses and maybe something about the lawns and grasses and things. Where do you think they're going to buy their supplies from?
I'm just curious what that piece of land is currently slated for or as. Is it just park land? Is
No, it's not.
do we own it already?
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't have any purpose lined up for,
It's designated for community facilities.
got it.
And this is the a piece, appropriate use of it. Well, that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to let you know, here's what's coming. Please look at it in a positive light.
Next, we have discuss, consider, and act on the following future projects and events. We have the biggest one, which is the Fireworks Independence Day event coming up on June 28th here in a couple of weeks. And it should, is there a flyer? There's not a flyer on there? Oh. Usually there's a flyer on there. If it doesn't look like it's linked, but we usually have some kind of flyer. I know Katrina updated on the website because we have Incognito performing. Starts at 6. We usually show up a little bit early. 6 p.m. I guess we should go ahead and discuss when we are going to volunteer. I know that I personally just kind of show up and hang out all day. And
What's the starting time for volunteering?
I'm trying to recall what time the vendors start setting up and when our vendor coordinator
Okay,
returns. We
so
can
whatever
ask
time
that.
it is, I'll be here, because I'm going to take half
Okay.
a day off of work, so I'll be here. If it's
You'll be on the
12,
early shift.
I'll be the whole day shift.
Okay. Okay. Chuck out. Surge all day. I'm gonna put no. I'll be there all day. Dana, are you all in all day or half day? You're in all day. And then Cindy, all day. Stephanie? No day, or you're going to be at the evening or anything? Okay. Okay. So there'll be 4 of us there. Are we missing anyone? Kyle. We can just ask him. Oh, and Micah. Micah's a go get. She's not out of town. I'm sure she'll help us some.
Can we just go over the checklist, make sure we have everything, Katrina?
What time are the vendors coming for the Independence Day celebration? What time do they start coming? Setup, when does setup start? Oh. We said 3. Whoopsie. Can we make that a little later?
We didn't come out that early.
Can we make it a little later? Can we just say 12, so if they show up at 11 and we're not there, they won't be mad? Awesome.
There you go.
Never mind. Can I stop you for a second? The portable restrooms and the light towers, were those gifted to us? Okay. Can we make sure we have a designated sign, or do we still have that one from the last one about a first aid station? Will that be manned by a firefighter or an EMT? Okay.
Do we have those tall people on stilts? No?
Christmas.
I thought we had them last year.
We did. We did have them last year.
You did?
Yeah.
I think we did. Oh. Fan favorite. DJ? Oh, that's right. And they're going to allow us to use their microphone to play the music for the fireworks? Okay. And what time are they coming? Mhm. Got it. I'm not able to volunteer for that. I worked the 2 days prior and the day after. Is anyone available? Are either of you or Serge in the evening? Are you available to help put out signs? I'm just not. I'm sorry.
Well, we can
on
help.
the
I can
previous
help,
day?
and I can help you mark the vendor spots.
So Dana and Cindy can come by, and then in the evening, Serge is wondering if there's anything
The previous night.
the previous night
is
after he
it
gets
the
off
previous
work
night
or
or the
anything.
previous day to put signs up?
Like
and
what
all that?
time could he?
The only reason I'm asking is I do work.
Right.
So for me, it would have to be like after 6 or maybe after 5.
So could Serge just text you that evening and say, hey, is there anything I can do that's still left to do? Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, just provide a time so this way. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really all we need, right? We don't need anything else for the 4th of July. Do we have our radios up and running, just for us to hang on to in case we need somebody somewhere, like the walkie-talkies? Okay. It's just helpful at that event for us to have them, just that way we can.
Are we gonna do flags, that morning?
One flag.
So my question is though, do we want to put all of the flags out on that Friday morning for Independence Day for Haslett? Because it's on the 28th, they probably would need to stay up through the week.
We would be a little challenged to get our staff to do all that.
No, that's okay. I was talking about us.
We usually
to
do
do
Great.
put them out.
Yeah.
I could help with that Wednesday, but not Thursday. I have a meeting. Would Wednesday be too early to? I mean, I could put some out Wednesday morning first thing.
No. Well, I have the poll. Well, we have several flags that need to be replaced. That last go around, that wind just tore a bunch of them up. If so, we could put them up on the 26th and leave them up through the 5th, which would cover 4th of July. Well, they're not hard to do. Sarah, if you want to help me, we'll do them on the 26th.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll do flags on the 26th.
All right. Movie in the park is September the 27th. Do we need to pick a movie yet, or are we still good? But we already have the screen, and that's already reserved, so we just need to get and it's pretty easy to get the movie and the license, right? Okay. So next time we can look at which movie. Okay. National Night Out will be October 1st from 6 to 8. Not much for us to do. Katrina does all that. Show up. Christmas in the Park, December 7th, 2024. Anything that is emergently pending for that one? I'd rather spend money on something that's used instead of, we have a lot of decoration. Anybody opposed to that opinion? I just said I'd rather spend money on something that would get use versus another decoration. Okay. But thank you. And, okay. Easter is going to be April 12th of 2025. Memorial Day celebration went well, but it was difficult to hear.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, before we do that, because I know that's going to be a discussion, I need to back up to Christmas in the Park. I have been approached, so I'd like to put it on the agenda for the next month about having wiener dog races at the Christmas in the Park event.
Okay.
There is a group that would like to put it on for us, so we wouldn't have to do anything other than
Give them a
allow
space.
them to do it. So if we could
Can
put
we
that
add
on
that for next Christmas
next month's agenda.
discussion?
Thank you.
And if you'll just bring the information from them, like a flyer or something. Sorry. Memorial Day celebration occurred and went well, except that it was difficult to hear in the back. It was hard to hear in the back. Of course, the train always goes by at the precise time that we choose to have our event.
If we'd have had a sound system, we could have fought through it because we did last. I mean, that to me, that was the biggest disappointment Cindy requested it. Somehow, the request didn't get to the chief, who was very apologetic at the end that we didn't have a sound system. But it turned a really good event into like backwoods, let's just holler at each other. And we had a great speaker, Gold Star daughter. And you couldn't hear unless you were sitting right up on her. And it was just, Cindy fought through it. I give her kudos because she fought through she turned a disaster into a pretty good event. So, but we need to talk
maybe we
about
could
that. I
add
don't know if I need to put this on for the next
Yeah.
agenda.
We could specifically put a sound
we need
system.
our own sound system.
We're hiring a DJ for that event or something.
I
Something
would
that gets us
suggest
a
that you
sound
purchase
system.
your own sound system.
That's what I would like. But
So can we add that for discussion specifically on that?
otherwise, it was a very
Or
good
the
day.
city admin can buy a sound system.
Okay.
And it's utilized by,
The
'cause
city.
Parks Board is the only other group that uses it.
Sure.
So fire department has theirs, admin's got this one,
Got it.
and it's used in the park, you know where it's at.
Okay,
How about that? We'll take care of that.
great. Do we need to then make it an agenda item?
No, you don't,
We don't if it's going to be purchased.
not the sound system.
So if we don't have a sound system in a few months, then we can readdress it or whenever we need it.
Say that again?
I'm just saying if for some reason it's not purchased or, by next May, it's not there, then we can add it to the agenda then if it gets missed. We're just saying in case.
It'll be probably purchased in the next month or two.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
What about overhauling that whole area out there? Because the rocks, every time it rains, the rocks wash out and the weed control fabric sticks up. And does that need to be on a future agenda that we can talk about, improving that area? Okay, can we put that on the future agenda?
And board, let me say something. You don't have to ask. You can say, I'd like to have this on a future agenda item.
Sometimes we just don't know if it needs to be placed or if it's already included because it's listed as Memorial Garden. That's an agenda item.
Yeah, and it's the same thing to do. Just go, if it comes to mind, I'd like to have this on an agenda item. Then, well, but Katrina in the process will consolidate. Oh, that could be
Okay.
one item.
Got it.
Just go ahead and not battle with it in your meeting. Just put it
Okay.
down and go.
Any other comments on Memorial Day?
Yes. There was that one young lady, the city employee that got hit on the head by the pipe. Was that ever resolved?
That's been resolved, and she was not injured.
She
I
wasn't.
checked with her multiple times. She got an owie, is what it amounted to, as she described it to me. And but we are taking we're rectifying how that bar is up there and making it a protocol. What happened is the pulling up the rope. That bar should have been taken off. So it's an operational error that caused an injury.
Well, the way I saw it, 'cause I was there.
But
the
that's
other-
all right. You want to discuss too much of this?
Yeah.
We're taking care of it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Any other Memorial Day? We do? Excellent. Oh, I thought it was going to be you. All right, yoga and Tai Chi kind of lumped together. Doing well. No motions for those. All right, we're going to discuss, consider, and act on recommendation to the City Council regarding the installation of a water bottle station at Community Park. And I know at the last meeting, we discussed sort of just getting a cost estimate on that particular unit that we were looking at. Is there just one company that does that? Do we have that now? We just want to make a recommendation with an actual recommendation instead of it being open. Yeah, we had the pictures, and I believe that we wanted a water fountain that had a handicap accessible station and a water bottle filling station. So two spouts in proximity. I thought we just wanted two. The one in the middle is for the bottles. We only need one side. We don't necessarily. So I thought we just wanted the handicap and the bottle filling. Was I wrong? I just thought we were trying to decrease the number and we don't need extra. If you've got a water bottle and a fountain that's handicap accessible, I don't know why we need extra fountains. So I think we can reduce that to just the two. Bottle and then one handicap accessible. Just enough to keep the basics without draining, causing more trouble and. Excellent. Oh yes, and then a water like a.
That's in a different location, as I recall. Not part of this drinking fountain you're not implying that you got a hose bib on this water fountain.
Yes.
Then we will have problems with children
Turning them on.
and a mud puddle.
And leaving it there.
So James is going to look at where a probable place would be and how that would be
Got it.
built.
Okay.
But it's separate from your water fountain.
So I will motion to continue this on the agenda for the next meeting without an action today. Second. All in favor? Motion passes. Next time.
The way they just did it is just fine.
All right. Discuss and review previous park surveys, report to City Council on results of previous park surveys. I went back and found it from January of 2023 when we deliberated for quite a significant amount of time and upgraded our survey. And I had a magic elf that somehow made lots of copies appear of it, which is so exciting for me. So this is what we whittled it down to at our last, I have one. Do you want one, Mayor?
No, thank you.
We had, and I found the record. Remember, I know, Serge, you had to have been here. And we went over that whole thing and whacked them off and crossed them out and revamped it and said, oh, we already have that. Take it off the survey. So that's all I did was retype the one that we had already worked on into just a little document that had the basic questions. The one thing I forgot to add was a senior citizen facility, because that was mentioned in here several times in the previous surveys that I had neglected on one of the rank your areas so that we can get sort of a top 5 to ask what do you think are the top 5 things. So if you have this from last time, it's the same thing. It's just revised down to what we already had crossed off, so we don't have to go through that again. So if there's anything that you don't see on there, we can add it. But the ranking system was this down here where it was kind of, it should look like that. I just didn't have time to make it all Excel fancy. Where people just kind of rank of these areas, which would you like to see developed / maintained? Because we already have a tennis court, we already have a basketball court, but maybe we want more basketball courts, or maybe the focus should be on the baseball fields, or maybe it should be on, you know, my top 5 might be soccer, basketball, a water fountain, and a community garden. That was actually on here as well. So that would kind of give us more pull to your community garden. We can say, hey, that was number 5 out of the community ranking. Let's go for it right now. But anyway, so that's just the condensed version from what we did from the last time. And then I believe, remind me if you were going to pull something out for us as well, or are we just all going to look at it amongst ourselves and then come back?
I was going to do some work, but each of you, and I think, yeah, I know it was, is provided in your agendas.
Yes.
If you click on that, you can download each study,
Yes,
the full study of each of those years.
yes.
And yes, I was going through and doing a comparative between those 3 years.
And then I went through and read, I believe this is from the 2019, it might have been the 2012. There were individual comments that people pre-texted, and I made sure to add that onto this one as well for a write-in section, because those comments were kind of, you know, people's opinion of things that we hadn't specifically asked about. So like, for example, thank you for including our opinion, you know, just something simple. Or I think we need a sprinkler system. Some of them make you chuckle, but some of them are really great feedback. So we need a grocery store in Hazlet was one of them. I like that. I guess they don't like Dollar General. I know what you mean.
Could we add one park?
Yeah.
Are you asked I would park that garden in there?
Oh, yes. Yep. Under Gamble Community Firehouse and Nance, add Veterans Garden. I left it off. And then I added at the bottom, which I don't think made the print off, senior facility, and then when I went through there was the flower botanical / community garden when I was reading after the fact. So that's also. That may not even need to be on there, right?
Right.
So I think it would be, I mean, this is just one page. It seems pretty simple. Make it available online. If we can fill out a form. Do we have access to that, Mayor? Some sort of like online form, like Google
We can get it
Documents?
generated,
or like
but
a-
we would like to see your form, what
Okay.
what you're requesting to put on the website.
Okay, so should we then, would it be best to sort of make this presentable, because it's just sort of written out, to ask council if they approve of that to be posted for just a parks information survey?
I would suggest you type it out,
Right?
and so we know what the subject is and the topics are, and send it to Katrina White.
Yep, she has it. I'm just gonna
Okay.
make it look prettier. I'm gonna make it look more like the original one.
Well, we might have to do some work on it to put it on the website,
Okay.
and it might not look with what you do
Oh, okay, so I'll just leave it as a plain document then.
for right now.
Okay.
For right now.
Yeah, so then
So
she
it
has
might
that.
go back and forth a
Okay.
time or two, but just right now.
So for
And
this,
you, so Katrina, you have that?
yes. Yes.
Oh,
That's why I
okay.
said the magic elf made them appear, because it did come in late.
I have a, so if it's on the website, are we gonna have a spot for name and address? Make sure it's at
Correct.
Hazlet.
So here is a topic that would be nice to have one point person to communicate with maybe once a day to get this thing done.
I'm happy to do it since I've already sent the information.
And your availability is after work. We don't know what your hours are.
I don't either.
And, okay, so just,
My hours are very variable.
yeah, well,
don't have, like, a
email
Monday
and
through
set up a
Friday.
time.
Okay, sounds fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Got, okay, good.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So do we need a motion to recommend to council consideration of posting the survey? Anyone?
Never hurts to make it.
Sure.
Our discussion item says to make recommendations to the city council.
Are you finished with your form and the content thereof?
Does anyone have anything they would like to add or detract from the survey? Other than the address, name and address of the person filling out the form?
right, this is Cindy. I'd like to make a motion. With the form that Sarah has presented to the board, adding Memorial Garden underneath the gardens, Gamble Community Firehouse and Nance, and then at the end of the ranking, put in senior citizen facility and botanical garden / community garden. Also
I'll
have a
email it
place
to
where
you.
people can verify their name or address.
Yep.
But I would like to make a motion that Sarah continue working with Katrina to get this presented to the city council.
All in favor? Vote. Excuse me, none opposed. Discuss, consider, and act to make recommendations to the city budget officer regarding the park board budget worksheet and any capital improvement projects for the fiscal year 24 and 25. When does city council make that? Do
You
their
need to-
budgeting workshops?
It's the budget officer is who you need to submit it to.
Correct, but my question was, when does city council make their budget? Like, when do they have their big budget meetings?
We'll have them in the late summer.
I'm asking because I'm wondering if we can postpone this to another meeting before we continue. That's why I was asking.
Oh, it was, yes, you can.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we're just going to kind of look at them now. Or can we just look at them ourselves? And then be ready? We can just read them ourselves, I think. Does anyone that's newer to the board have any specific questions? I know it's kind of confusing if you've never seen it before, but okay.
Well, let me ask you, I haven't looked at I saw the content and it was a snapshot of your financial report, your budget worksheets. So what is it that you want to do with your budget worksheet?
Well, I'm not sure where this agenda item came from, so I don't know what the intent of it was.
Where did it come from? Was it, huh?
Normally we review them and then Marcy will come and present and we make our suggestions and we discuss and we say, oh, we would like to move
Oh,
this money here.
she's asking for the projects. That's what she's asking
Okay.
for. Is, okay, look at this. And take what you have, things that will be carried over, that money will be carried over. But what projects are you requesting?
Okay, so at the last meeting, we
Yeah,
requested
for
the
next
shaded,
year.
the shaded
Shaded
benches
pavilion.
at the parks and the
Yep.
baseball fields.
Yep.
And
And
we
a new park.
requested the ball zone, which it's
Well, you
coming
need to
up
write
now.
them down.
Oh,
So if
Oh,
each
I
of you,
see.
you need to go see it.
Okay,
It doesn't do us a lot of good that you verbally describe it here. You need to write it down. Yes.
I'd
okay,
like to
so let's start with the one that we misfired on about moving the money from the volleyball court and put that on there since that's an actual agenda item now. Because remember the last meeting you asked, do we need to change that on the minutes? Because we motioned and made an action on something that wasn't an action item. Now it's an actionable item. So now that we have that, we need to re-action that same motion.
But this is for 24, 25.
I-
So this is for
Yes,
next
I would,
year's
don't be
budget.
concerned about this year or
Right.
Right.
The
what's
end of
going on.
this year.
This is
Is
for
looking at
anything.
the new year. October 1's your new budget year.
Correct.
What are the items that you want to go? Because
For next
you're going to
year.
have several iterations of this. So what's your wish list? That's what we are asking. Actually, it is Marcy Lamb and I are asking for your wish list.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, let me make clarification. You're saying if the project's not completed, it can go forward. It will go forward unless you kill the project. You don't have to add it again. No, you don't have to count for what's on there already. So what's your wish list for new items?
I'm curious to know why the fall zone is 184, but it's really only proposed at 75.
Say it again.
Or was that just what it was in 2021?
What are you
I was just
asking?
curious about why the fiscal year of 2021 has an actual amount of 184,000. Right, I just was curious.
Because that's
have we
what
been trying
was
to make a fall
allotted that
zone?
year.
Got it,
That was what was allotted for that
Okay.
year.
got it.
I'd like to make a motion that on 7C, we look at these items and then talk about, well, just review them and talk about them at the next meeting.
Second,
This is Chuck, I second.
all in favor? None opposed? Discuss, consider, and act to approve the proposal for improvements for Gamble Park Fall Zone from the Capital Improvement Project. We had the
Can you bring up that chart again, how much we've got in the
photograph here
project?
of where, I don't know. What it looks like.
Yeah,
That's the location. I don't know where I found the picture, but I had it.
right. And we were asked, Dana and I were asked to go up and talk to James about it.
Yes.
And he informed us that, I don't know the exact numbers again, I wish he was here. He informed us that all of that equipment could be replaced and that the special flooring could, all of that can be taken out and put down just like it is in the Gamble Park area so that it's wheelchair accessible. Oh, good. Did he send them?
So that's what it looks like now.
This is what it looks like right now. And this is what it would look like new. The light green area that's in there would be the same material that's up there on the Gamble Park. The reason that you don't want to put in the tire swing is because it's not safe and there isn't a big enough fall zone. All of this is ADA compliant, and it comes to about $7,000, and you have to $7,000 or $8,000 more than what we have budgeted. But it's, is it in there? Three. Okay. I always inflate things when it's coming out of my pocket.
But he did make a recommendation that we place equipment at the same time as the fall zone, because he said, once you put the fall zone down, it's much harder to come in and put the
And put
equipment
it back again.
Yeah.
Okay.
back.
And yeah, and some of the larger poles are already starting to rust down there anyway. So
Usually. Do we have are those one of the three estimates? Is that what that is we're looking at? Okay.
but it's the same company that did the part of our park that we've already had done.
Oh, I see.
I wanted to ask Katrina, isn't this company also on the pre-approved list for purchase? That's a big thing. So they've already qualified, you know. So if you like the project, you could make a motion on it.
So I'd like to discuss it because I have multiple things from the previous that I think I can recall. I have all the previous proposals that we had, if anyone wants to look through that one from when we did the other one, because I know that we sort of picked what we liked and what we didn't like. And I mean, I don't know, my kids are probably too big to have really had time to enjoy those, but I'm not a personal fan of the seats that spin because kids fall out of them and hit their head. Being that I work in a pediatric urgent care, I can tell you what not to put in the park if you want to try to avoid injuries. The teeter-totter thing, not a good idea. There's a lot of straddle injuries. Those all look fine. But those little seat spinny things, you sit in them. The way they work is your kid sits in them and their butt goes in that pocket and their feet overhang it and they spin around in it. They're not my favorite as a pediatric provider. I don't know if anyone has small kids and wants to comment on that, or grandkids or anything, but that wouldn't be my choice of things to add to the fall zone. Agree.
What are the options?
So there's another laying swing that looks similar to the one that we have now. That's kind of an open. They have one down at the Dream Park in Fort Worth that allows someone with disabilities to lay on the swing, but it's hard surface. The one that we have now, we kind of sprung for a lesser expensive one, I believe, has holes in it. There's one that looks similar to, that's the one we picked. I had
And the
another
whole
one.
thing has to do with there's certain fall zone.
There was this bumblebee that we really liked, where you sit on the bumblebee and the bumblebee rocks and it teeter-totters. I don't know if y'all remember that one from the previous. Kind of hard to see in this picture, but it was like a. What would fit in that space, right?
Okay.
Perfect.
We will ask them what we can replace those two things with and bring it back next month. So can we continue this on next month's agenda?
We do.
This is Stephanie. I'll make a motion that we go back to the company and find some more options for that area discussed circles and talk about it next week.
This is Cindy, I second.
All in favor? None opposed?
So you approve of everything else on the main swing set?
No. We'll look at the whole thing together and then decide when we see
Oh,
it back
okay.
together.
Okay, so you're looking at every element. Well, I
Well,
thought you were just looking at those two bucket things.
that's what we want to see again. We just want to see what other options they would have, but we're not. We can always switch them out later, but the way I
So
understand
if
it,
you'd make a note, Katrina, they want an entire selection on the swing set itself, as well as those two elements out by itself.
yes, just with other options. It's fine. I know there are other options because I have them right here, but maybe not with that company. You're probably right. Discuss regarding updates on the city parks. Any update on Gamble Park?
I know one time we talked about putting lights up on that playground over there because it's going to get
Mhm,
to be
we did.
105, 106 pretty soon. And if that was covered, I mean, if we had lights,
yes.
they could come out and play at night.
We were going to see if there was power out to that Gamble Park to see if we can get it lighted. Because we're. Got it. Yes.
They're going to survey your power capability out there and make recommendations and about the lighting and also utility outlets in certain locations that you're looking for. So I don't know, are you talking about lighting in a different area? In what specific area did you make mention of this lighting?
Gamble Park.
Gamble Park Playground.
Gamble Park Playground.
That would make that a future agenda item. please. And that lighting is for the purpose of what? I
Allowing
know to
children
see at night, but to allow families or kids
to extend the
play
evening hours of the summer.
into the evening up
Mhm.
to park closure, 10 o'clock?
Yep, because it gets so hot, and then it gets cold, or if it gets dark, even in the winter, you know, my kids will go out in a
No, I'm
jacket.
just trying to get an idea of what you're trying to light and
extend
for
the
what
length
reason,
of
because
the-
the lighting layout would be differs from one to
Okay,
the other.
Yeah, just to extend the time of available
Yeah.
light playtime. Because, you know, if you're out there walking in the park, there's
Got
lights
it.
on the path, but there's not anything at the park. So when it
Got
gets
it.
dark, you got to go home. Come home when the street lights turn on. Anything else? Any future agenda items anyone thought of? Oh, yes, let's add the volleyball.
Well,
I mean, it can be considered it could go under the project, yeah. But we postponed that to discuss that next time, so we can put that on as one of the considerations of the project. But if we have it specifically listed as an agenda item, Katrina can lump it together, or we can make sure we remember. Make a decision. Right.
So are you making the volleyball court a future agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, that was,
Yes, under 7C, yes.
great.
Because when we come back and talk about 7C, we're going to say these are the capital improvement projects that we would like.
Under,
the
That's gonna be
volleyball-
for next year. 24, 25.
Right, our year ends next month.
It doesn't end until October.
let me make
End of
that,
September is when it is.
list your volleyball court or any other item under future agenda
Okay.
items. Discuss and determine what it is you want to do about a volleyball court.
Okay.
And then then you'll make a decision, does
Where
it
to
make
put
a
it.
project list?
All right, so future agenda items will be lights at Gamel Playground, volleyball court, pavilion,
Memorial Garden.
Memorial Garden.
Oh, the new picnic table. shade
Shading the
structure.
picnic tables.
No, it's a new
The
new
benches?
structure that has shade over it that
I
we
thought
want
that
to
was
put in the park. It's a small one, yeah.
I thought they were already shading them. Remember they were adding a bench to Gamel? Have we already added a bench to Gamel, a covered bench? I could have sworn that they told us they were putting out a covered bench in Gamel. Yeah, but the bench for the parents to sit at.
Yeah, but what
We
we
were
were
told we already
talking
had
about
it.
is,
I'll find it. We already did it. But what are we adding to make sure it's on there? Covered seating?
it's like the one when you come out of the library, that small one that has
Yes.
the little cover over
Yeah,
it.
we had that as pavilion. But what's the other thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said you wanted something. I'm gonna say I don't remember talking about.
Yep, it came at one
Shade.
I do recall for Gamble Park, now Gamble Park's the little kiddie park, little baby park, is I thought you mentioned something about a bench with a shade over the top.
Yes. They were supposed to add a parent bench.
And
So I'm
have-
gonna say a covered bench.
And to
another
give
item.
these people, people an idea how big a bench, see if seat 2 people, 3 people, 4 people.
No, what we're talking about is replicating the one, when you come across the street from the library, there's a picnic table with 2 benches, and there's room to walk around it, and then there's the big cover over the top of it.
So we're talking about.
Okay, you're not
two-
asking for a bench that's got a,
We are.
No.
We're talking
Tarp
about.
A
over it.
pavilion.
you're looking for a pavilion.
We're talking
the
about
small
different things. I'll speak
pavilion.
for myself. I'm talking about something completely different than the pavilion. We had talked about adding a bench for parents to sit outside of Gamel Playground
See, that's why
to
I
watch
thought
their
that,
children play on the swings And that's a simple 3-person bench that's shaded, like they're gonna put in at the tennis court.
Yeah, you asked for both.
Yes, we've asked for both.
Okay, and this is where we're gonna need
it.
your help. Because you're giving us a long laundry list here.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
Why is
Firehouse.
Firehouse Field not on our with one of our parks? Are we not allowed to do anything over there
The
anymore?
Firehouse Field and Nance Field
Right.
are under contract. They're under contract, and they're going through some changes right now. And there's a lot of, as you can see, Firehouse Field has got a lot of work done to it already that this park board hadn't called for. So there's a lot of work going on. And
Can't call for
eventually,
it if
the
it's not on our-
topics about that will be brought to the board,
Brought to,
here. By me. But right now, the answer is, it's HSA has prominent use, priority use of that field, and
It's always
things
been like that.
things that are being done there are very much geared towards HSA and try to accommodate them.
well, what I'm saying though is that
The contract doesn't exclude
quite a
Haslett
while
residents.
ago, we were doing some things for Firehouse Field, and then it was taken off of our list, so is there not anything that we can do for Firehouse Field? Like, say the bleachers. The bleachers got moved back and forth, and now they're falling apart. Could we not buy bleachers for Firehouse Field?
You can suggest it, but here's what I know, that, see, there's some construction that's going to be involved where those bleachers go.
Okay.
And primarily a enhanced ADA concrete path
What we asked 4 months ago.
from the parking lot
Mhm.
out, and with landing areas for, ADA.
And that was stuff that we started 2 years ago.
Mhm. We've been asking for that for a long time, and now it's just off of our agenda, so we're just confused.
Right.
But to determine what and where the bleachers go, that's to be determined. So if you have ideas,
But what I'm saying, Mayor, is, I'm sorry, but when it's not even on our agenda,
We can't give our
we
Right.
ideas.
And
can't even
the-
discuss it.
so it's,
We would like to have them on our agenda sort of on a rolling basis.
so
if
it's not,
available.
that's a good item. You haven't got any budget money for those
Correct.
fields. And everything that's associated right now, we're expending over $2 million.
On what?
Firehouse Field, sewer line, where in next budget year, the city, I have a permanent restroom facilities going in. So there's things that are being done that the park board may, it's just,
Right.
if someone here wants to call me up every once in a while, that would help tremendously. You would learn a lot of what's going on over there.
I guess I'm
From
looking
the
at
city's,
I'm over there
The
5
sun.
to 6 days a week.
no, I'm talking about call me up.
What?
What, you're over there 5-6 days
Yeah,
a
that's
week?
what I'm saying. Like, I've got all the ideas. I mean, like, if we need
I
ideas
nominate
on what
Stephanie
we
to be
need
your liaison.
to,
I don't understand what's,
like, you said you need someone for, like, knowing what's needed out there? Is that
no.
what?
Someone just to communicate with on the board. I have nobody here on this board to communicate with.
Well,
Nobody.
actually, you call me quite often. We talk on the phone.
But we
a
never
lot.
talk.
We talk
You
a
have
lot.
yet to call me.
I've emailed you. I've called
You
you.
have not called me.
I have called you. I also
I have
emailed you, and I have
requested
the record of the email if you'd
multiple
like it.
times for you to call, and it's been recommended by others for you to call me.
I've called you.
It hasn't happened.
I guess I forgot that I talked to you. That's fine. But I recommend Stephanie to be the one to call you. Now you have a
But
point
if
person.
someone would call, it can be anybody,
Stephanie.
to
Please,
regularly
could we
communicate,
make Stephanie our
and that would
liaison?
happen.
Great.
I think I gave everybody my card. It has my mobile number on it. It has my
Yeah,
number.
if you don't have it, I can give it to you because I've called him before. Any other future agenda items? Adjourned. Petrus.